So a lot of people have been asking me, can we buy your cake or not? Because we're not going to do it at home. We don't have a mixer. Yes, now you can pick it up from Hainan Story. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to bake a butter cake. So it's that time of the year where people do a lot of baking because we're going to prepare all the goodies for Chinese New Year. My mother-in-law, she says she only likes butter cake because butter cake is the best. When you bake butter cake, the most important thing is you got to get the right butter. If you are going to bake a butter cake for your friends, your relatives, the best thing you can say, especially for those older generation, is to tell them, hey, I use SCS Butter. SCS Butter has been around since 1905 and it's the favorite butter amongst all the more traditional bakers who want to achieve that traditional taste. And then I found out recently that actually the butter is first of all made from quality cream, and then secondly they double churn the butter, so there is some objective reason why the butter is a little bit more creamy. They like the aroma. This is the latest version they're putting in the market. There are some of you out there who need to have a low salt diet, can actually choose the slightly salted version. So let's start baking. Those of you who are familiar with the channel will know that I have a butter cake recipe and everyone tells me that it is the best butter cake. This recipe is a simplified version but still quite similar. Today we are using SCS butter in particular. So the butter is already slightly softened because we're out of the fridge for a while. We will start off by creaming the butter. So we add the caster sugar to the butter. While the butter is creaming, we'll separate the eggs. When you're creaming, you want to make sure that you cream until it's very pale yellow. That means that the sugar has already cut into the butter and aerated it nicely. We're going to add in some sour cream. Traditionally, they used to use condensed milk instead of sour cream, but I've decided to use sour cream to cut down on the sugar, and it also gives you that nice moist, velvety mouthfeel when you bite into the cake. So I'm going to add in some vanilla essence. Because we are using already low salt butter, I'm not adding in any additional salt. So at this stage, we're going to add in the egg yolks one at a time. And when you add in the egg yolk, you want to make sure that the egg yolk is nicely mixed into the butter and sugar mixture. So you can see that the egg yolk is nicely mixed into the butter and sugar. The next step is to add in our flour, or in Singapore we like to say flour. This is self-raising flour. Nowadays, the flour that you buy from the supermarket already comes very nicely sifted. So you actually don't need to do it unless you see a lot of lumps in your flour. So if you find that your flour is actually quite okay, you can actually use it straight away. So we put the mixer on a low speed and then we're going to add in the flour. We're just going to mix it until most of the flour has been incorporated into the butter and we stop. We don't want to over mix the flour. We're going to set this aside. So now we're going to whip up the egg whites. The butter cake is actually a very simple cake. It's got only butter, sugar, eggs and flour. It's the proportion of these ingredients and also the technique that will produce a cake of a certain texture. We're going to add in the cream of tartar into the egg white. So we're going for stiff peaks here. In my previous recipe, I used to reserve some of the sugar to add into the egg white, but I found that actually you don't need to do it. You can add all the sugars into the butter first and then beat up the egg white separately without the sugar. You can tell that it's almost ready when all the big bubbles have disappeared and it's becoming glossy on top. Now we've got stiff peaks. So now we're ready to mix this into the yellow team. Now those of you who have been using my pandan chiffon cake recipe will know that when you're folding in the whites into the rest of the batter, you have to be very, very gentle. But with the butter cake, you can be a little bit less gentle. Of course, don't be too rough with it. I bake all these cakes, for my mother's. The pandan chiffon cake was because of my mum, and this butter cake is because of my wife's mum. So the batter is nicely mixed now. We're ready to bake the cake. So today we are going to bake the cake in a 6-inch square pan, and I have lined the pan with some baking paper and wrapped it with some of this baking cloth. The baking cloth is to help the cake not to cook too fast at the side so that it doesn't dome too quickly and crack. We're going to fill the pan with the cake batter. Just gonna smoothen the top of the cake using this spatula. Okay, I'm doing this because I want my top to be really nice and beautifully smooth. Make sure that it's flat and you can bake it straight away. Let's taste the cake. That nice buttery traditional butter cake flavor that everybody likes. I'm sure that you present it to your mom, your grandma, your grandpa, they'll all say, "Hey, 就是这个味道, this is 古早味," because it's made from the butter that they all grew up with, SCS Butter. So a lot of people have been asking me, can we buy your cake or not? Because we're not going to do it at home. We don't have a mixer. It's just I don't bake. I don't have an oven. Yes, now you can pick it up from Hainan Story. I've been working with the baker from Hainan Story to reproduce the exact recipe so that you can have the cake at home. There's no margarine, no preservatives added. We have kept it in the fridge to keep it cool. So what you need to do when you want to eat it is to open up the cake and then warm it up either using a microwave or the oven, so it's nice and warm as if it was just baked. So because the cake is not made with any preservatives, it's best to eat it within 3 days of when you purchase it, but it will keep in the fridge for another 2 weeks. The quality will not be as good as if you eat it fresh. So if you're not planning to bake this cake at home, remember you can pick up the cake at Hainan Story. Every cake is made from 1 block of SCS butter, and remember also they've got this new slightly salted version which you can pick up from the supermarket. So until next time, happy baking, happy eating, and Happy New Year! Wada!